Hannon Library storytelling program, LMU Speaks, featuring stories tonight from 4 individuals from the LMU community. So first of all, thank you all for being here. I'm Jeff Gatton, I'm the Associate Dean here in the library, and I will be introducing our speakers tonight. But first, I want to do a couple things. One is acknowledge Henry Ward, the Director of Intercultural Affairs, who he helped identify our student speakers tonight. And secondly, I want to draw your attention to the green feedback form that you will find on your seats. Since this is our first event in this series, your feedback will be very important to us in terms of shaping future iterations of this event. And if you add your email address, you will be entered into a drawing at the end of the semester for a $100 Amazon gift card. So please, 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 at the end of the evening, fill these cards out and you can drop them in the box up here in the front. Okay, so each of our speakers tonight is going to share a true personal story based on the central theme of a fork in the road. So they're going to be responding to this prompt. Tell us about a moment from your life when you faced an important decision, a moment of truth or a crossroads in your path that led to where you are now. So with that daunting task, our first speaker tonight will be Kaylin Sabal Wilson. Kaylin is a sophomore communication studies major with an African American studies minor, and she's from Riverside, California. She's passionate about poetry and performing for purposes of telling stories and connecting with people. Already during her time here at LMU, she's become involved with campus groups such as LMU Debate Team, Sisters in Solidarity, and the Intercultural Facilitators. Kaylin is someone who, quote, looks forward to all that is yet to come.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kaylin, and just like that wonderful introduction, I just want to let you know I'm from Riverside, California, sophomore communication studies major, all of that stuff. But more importantly, I am first-generation American, and I am the first person in my family to attend a 4-year university. So to kind of illustrate that for you, thank you. So to put that into perspective, I come from a very colorful family. My mother is from Belize, my father is from Trinidad, my godmother is from Panama, and my godfather is Jamaican. So all of that island flavor has sort of bled into the person that I am today. And I take a lot of pride in embracing my culture as I stand in front of you. But that hasn't always been the case. When I was growing up, I struggled quite a bit with figuring out what my identity was. Was I Caribbean American or Black American? Was I more Belizean or Trinidadian? Was I more Charlotte or Stephen, more Sabal or Wilson? And I battled with that decision quite a bit. When I was very young, my parents split up, and although I wasn't old enough to remember the split or how it went down, I do remember always feeling like I was pitted in the middle of a divide between mom and dad and what was on both sides. So growing up, I had a lot of problems figuring out, like, being around my Belizean cousins and my Trinidadian cousins, I'm the only one that's half and half. So I wasn't one or the other, I was right in the middle. And when I turned about 16, that's when I really started to battle with that decision about who I wanted to be, who I was more like, and what I wanted to become. And one day, I was in class, and I wrote a poem that I'm going to share with you all this evening that really sort of illustrates my battle in trying to figure out which side I was on. This poem is self-titled, and I hope that you all enjoy it. My signature, a K that starts with a straight line intertwined by a curvature that loops and swoops over the line like my mother, crossing the border in order to have a better life at the age of 4. The A for ambition that opened the door to E, excellence. And I try to excel very well so that no L's are stamped on my forehead. That measures out to about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. Large enough to linger like the high note of a singer as they pause to take a breath. The Y slides, cascades, and drops into the depth of the ocean. The N, the notable notion that we have reached the end of the first name that was given. The R for my middle initial is the representation, or rather the symbol, that stands for the rebirth in the French middle name that they gave me, Renee. It echoes through my ears like music, a song on replay, Renee. Told that I resemble the reincarnation of regal daughters that roamed the earth before my time. Sabal, the second to last name before the line. The dash, the sign that used to unify but now depicts the divide where my parents decided to call it quits. The hyphen comfortably fits on the throne in which I sit between two worlds, mom's strong woman and daddy's little girl. However, in the years prior to this presentation, the hyphenation held a negative connotation. Why do you have 2 last names? Are you married? Of course the questions varied, but it only added to the burden that I constantly carried. Dashing between residences and homes, staying with mom and calling dad on the phone, I am the only child, the product of an unbroken home. If you have 2 last names, take your pick. Choose one and stick with it. It seems simple, right? Wrong. It's so much more complex. My mother lost her father as an infant. Sabal, her last name, the only remnant of him that she could cling to. And my father, Mr. Wilson, well, he went through a similar thing too. See, his father, in his final days, was only trying to see his son's first daughter, but he died. And on his bedside, beside my grandfather, laid a picture of his granddaughter. That's me. In his final moments, he got to see my face and my eyes that they say display his spitting image. He's the man that I get my gap from, but it's way more than just my teeth. And I can feel my ancestors when I speak. I can feel the distance between my components, fighting on the same side, far from opponents. My legacy, I've pretty much shown it. And because I haven't picked a side yet, I know that I was chosen in this very moment and every other. My signature, pure literature, inscribed in me by my father and my mother. As you can see, that poem still stirs a lot of emotion from me. I wrote that when I was very steeped in internal conflict when it came to my identity. I was 16 years old in my junior year of high school, getting ready to fill out all of my college applications. And I was really trying to figure out, which name do I put on my application? Is it Sabal or Wilson? Who do I spend the weekends with when I come home from college? Like, what is this going to mean for my future? And on one day when I was particularly struggling with this, I had just finished my physics homework like 3 minutes before class started, and I was running in to try to turn it in on time, and I noticed that I hadn't written my name at the top. So I pulled a pencil out of my bag and haphazardly wrote my name at the top of the page. I looked at it for a second, and it felt different. Looking at the name that my parents had given me 16 years ago, it felt so much different. So I pulled a page out of my binder and started scribbling a poem, studying each letter one by one until I had something that I felt like I could be proud of. And the first thing I did after I read that poem was I stuffed it in my bag, waited till I got home, and I read it to my mom for the first time. And I remember distinctly seeing her face as she's trying to hide her tears, smiling at me and saying that it was the most beautiful thing she had ever heard me write. So then I shared it with my father, and I remember he and my stepmother bursting into tears, smiling and saying that that's what my grandfather would have wanted. So now, fast forward to my graduation party, when I'm leaving high school, and I still don't know who I want to be. Am I Sabal? Am I Wilson? Am I Belize? Am I Trinidad? Am I Charlotte? Am I Stephen? Still don't really know who I am. And that's when all of my family members who I had gathered together started to speak. This was the first time that I had ever gotten both sides of my family in one room. Ever. And the most beautiful thing about it was that they were there for one reason. Two sides who had never really spoken with each other, two sides that had never really interacted, two different families that come from two different countries in one room together, enjoying each other's company, laughing, and expressing their pride in one thing. Not their country of origin, not their immigrant story, not their new car that was parked outside, but me. The one thing that united these two sides, these two very different groups of people. So my uncle spoke, my aunt spoke, everyone was brought to tears. And then my mother said, Kaylin's gonna come up and say a few words. And I was like, okay, this is cool, I guess. So I went up there, extremely nervous to speak, to finally address both sides of my family in one room. I opened my mouth, and shakily the first thing that fell out was my signature. And I started to perform my poem. And I remember looking out at my whole family, sitting sort of like this, with the Sabals on one side and the Wilsons on another. And I just looked out at them, and I performed my poem. And it was the first time that they had ever really heard this story, my story, that they had all helped me write. And as I stood between the Sabals and the Wilsons, one side or another, I made my decision. It wasn't about being one or the other. It was about being what brought these people into this room to begin with. It's about being me, the one thing that they could all say that they were proud of. So now as I stand here in front of you, at 19 years old, just a tiny bit more self-aware, and more full of life, I can say undoubtedly that on the divided path that I've always stood between mom and dad, between Belize and Trinidad, between Cheryl and Stephen, between Sabal and Wilson, I've made my decision. Rather than choosing one or another, on this divided path, I choose me. Because that's all they've ever wanted me to do. Not to choose, but to be myself. So it's been a great journey. Thank you all for this amazing experience.
Thank you very much. That was amazing. Our next speaker is Dr. Ernesto Colleen. Ernesto is a visual artist, Aztec dancer, world traveler, radio host, and associate professor of urban education at LMU. He's also a two-time LMU alum, and he received his PhD in anthropology of education from Stanford. His research interests include indigenous education and diversity in schools. And he says his life goes through phases, and currently he is in a distance running and obstacle course racing phase. So, Dr. Colleen.
Props, Caitlin, it's beautiful. It's hard to follow. Thank you for this invitation. Thank you for this time. I was asked to talk about a fork in the road, but I actually have a story about 11 forks in the road, all in one day, and we're going to stay in Central America. It's about my journey into the rainforest of Central America. What you have to know before I start my story is that ever since I was a child, I've been fascinated with ancient Mesoamerica. And I made a checklist when I was young about all of the ancient cities that I wanted to visit. These are beautiful cities throughout Mesoamerica, places like Chichen Itza, Palenque, Tulum, Tula, El Tajín, Monte Albán, Tikal, and others. And there was one place, many places, but one of the crown jewels of my list was a place in Honduras that's really hard to get to. It's an ancient city called Copan. And this is a story about how I got there. The year was 1999. I had just graduated from LMU for the first time, and two LMU professors invited me to Guatemala City, to the Jesuit University there, and we did a cultural exchange. And while I was there, I was talking to my host family, and they told me that, we were talking about the ancient Mayan cities, and they said Copan isn't very far. You might want to give it a shot. There's tours that go there from Guatemala City. And so what I did is I changed my flight. I changed my flight so that I can have one more day in the country, and I booked a tour the next day to go to Copan. The next morning I'm up at 4 in the morning, and it's pouring rain, but I'm excited. And I'm supposed to be picked up at 5 o'clock, but the tour company never comes. We call and we call the offices, and we get no answer for about an hour. About 6 o'clock, somebody does answers, and they've forgotten about me. And so nobody is coming. But they said, well, we can tell you how to do it on your own. And here we have another fork in the road. And so I said, well, this is my chance. This is what I gotta try, And I had done some world travel, but it was a big risk. And so I jump out with my camera in tow, and I jump out to the main plaza in Guatemala City. It's pitch dark. It stopped raining at this point, and I'm looking for a cab. And at this time, there were no cabs. I needed to get to the bus depot, and a police officer arrives and asks me what I'm doing. Probably looks suspicious out there. And I tell him I'm trying to get to the bus depot and I can't find a cab. He says, well, hop in, I'll give you a ride. So he didn't arrest me, and I made it to the bus depot. When I arrived there, we have a series of unfortunate events that continue. I missed the bus that I needed to take. I was late, and I missed the bus that needed to go to Esquipulas on the east side of Guatemala on the border towards El Salvador. But I got the next one. And as I rode that bus, it was about a 3.5-hour trip, and I saw the sunrise over volcanoes in rural fields of Guatemala. I see parrots flying by, and I'm excited about this day, and I'm headed towards my goal. I got off short of Esquipulas because I needed to get off on a small town named Chiquimula. It was a tiny little town, and had this dusty bus depot. And I was near the border of Honduras, and I booked a ticket to the border. And I got on one of these buses here. It's called a camioneta. And it took us about 3 hours to travel 40 kilometers. It was quite a scene. The bus was packed. People were bringing on chickens and goats, and people were riding the roof of the bus, and they had sacks of coffee and bushels of bananas, and we were stopping every 3 kilometers, and it took 20 minutes for people to load and unload this thing, and I'm watching the clock, and it took us 3 hours. I make it to the border with Honduras at about 1:30. And I knew that the last bus back to Chiquimula was at 4 o'clock. And so, the other problem that I had at this point was that was the end of my plan. I knew how to get to the border. I didn't know how to get into Honduras nor to Copan. And so I'm asking the border agent who stamps my passport, and he's really friendly. He says, well, it's 10 kilometers. Maybe somebody can give you a ride. And at this point, a young man approaches me. And he's about my age, and he says, hey, you're looking kind of worried here, lost. I had been walking around for a half an hour, and I said, well, I need to get to Copan. And he said, well, we're going there. We can give you a ride. And his name was Salvador. And for those of you who don't speak Spanish, that means Savior. And that matters a lot. And so I jumped in the back of his dad's pickup truck, full of his siblings and cargo, and we make our way down dirt roads 10 kilometers into the city of Copan. This is what it looks like now. I did return later on. Copan is this tiny town in the rainforest of Honduras. And I arrived there around 2:30. and I know that I need to leave at 3:30 the latest in order to make it back to the border. And so I have about 1 hour to check out the ancient city of Copan. And so I race into the archaeological site and I pay my fee. And at this point, a frail, tiny old man comes up to me. He's hunched over, he has a hat, and he asks if he could give me a tour of the site. It was kind of wild because there was nobody in the park. I mean, it's hard to get there, and it wasn't like a major tourist attraction in '99. And I said, well, how long does the tour take? And he says, well, it's 3 or 4 hours, plus we have the museum. And I'm like, well, I have less than 60 minutes. And he's like, well, I can do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna trust him. And I had made all kinds of assumptions at this point, but this man was amazing. I'll never forget him. We basically jogged through the site. It was humid. There was monkeys and jaguars in the area. I saw ancient tall ceiba trees, and this is a shot that I took while I was there in Copan. I went through tunnels. I explored tombs, the ancient stelae that were there, the largest petroglyphic script in all of Mayan territory can be found there. And the guy gave me a whiz-bang tour. It was fantastic. About 50 minutes later, I run out of the archaeological site back to the main plaza to catch that last shuttle back to the border, and it's nowhere to be found. Another fork in the road. And I'm starting to get really disheartened because I know I'm going to miss stuff here, and I have no money, and I have no food and no place to stay, and I'm in the middle of the Honduran rainforest, and far from the airport. And so Salvador was in the plaza hanging out with his friends, and he comes back up to me and he says, hey, what's going on? You missed the shuttle. And I'm like, I did. And he's like, well, let me see if my friend can give you a ride. And so he hails his friend Cesar over and asks if he can give me a ride to the border. And Cesar is not willing. He's got errands to do, and he's not headed that way. And I beg him, and I offer him at this point 100 quetzales, which back then was about 20 times more than the shuttle would have cost me. And he jumps at that, and he agrees. And so the three of us jumped into his mid-'80s red Camaro, and we start racing down these dirt roads, and we are flying. It's a joyride to the border. But I make it there, and we jump out, and it turns out that the 4 o'clock bus back to Chiquimula has also left. I missed that. And so I'm here at the border, and I'm stuck once again. Salvador starts asking people that are at the border if anybody's headed into Guatemala. And so he doesn't find anybody. I'm there for like half an hour. I got nobody. And so he finally convinces these 2 Honduran guys that are going in some other direction to give me a ride. I offer 120 quetzales. This is pretty much all I have left, begging them, and they do. They give me a ride. So we are in now. There's 2 of them, and we're in a 2-seater truck, pickup truck. So and they're full of cargo in the back. So I have to squeeze behind the 2 seats in the cab for the trip. And so I tell them I have to get back to Chiquimula by 6 o'clock in order to catch that last bus back to Guatemala City. And so, can you please step on it? And so they do. And that 3-hour ride turns into like an hour and 45-minute ride. And on the way, I'm looking out the window, and I see that we passed the bus that I had missed on the border. Which you'll see will be extremely fortunate. If I had caught that other bus, I would have been in worse trouble. So we pulled into the dusty station in Chiquimula, and as we're pulling into the parking lot, leaving the parking lot is the 6 o'clock bus that's leaving towards Guatemala City, the last one, the one that I need. I jump out of the car and I start running down the highway, waving frantically to try to catch that bus. But it speeds down, and I had missed yet another bus. There was a whole row of taxi drivers there watching and laughing at me. And they're all like, what's going on? Obviously that was yours, right? And I said, yeah, I'm in huge trouble. I'm more demoralized. And I said, well, I'm stuck once again. So these taxi drivers were wild. These guys, salt of the earth guys. This big guy, dusty white shirt, big pot belly guy says, come on, let's go catch it. And without thinking twice, I jump into the passenger seat of this, again, mid-'80s white Toyota Corolla, I remember it. And he starts speeding down the highway. It's a 2-lane highway. About 5 minutes later, he catches up to the bus. And he pulls up to the side of it, and he's honking. We're waving down the bus driver, and the bus driver is like, no, what are you guys doing? He thinks we're maniacs, or terrorists, or, bandits or something. So he's not doing anything. But this taxi driver gets bold, and he pulls out in front of the bus and slams on the brake and forces the bus to stop. He jumps out, and he starts telling the bus driver, hey, this kid needs to get on. Why did you leave early? He's got to get on this. And the bus driver's like, we left early because we're sold out. There's no more seats. He's not getting on. And I'm just like, oh man, please, I'm begging you. And I need to get on. I'll stand up. I'll sit on the stairs. Anything. I'll get on. And so they let me on. And then I realized at that point that I'm out of money. I had already given it all up to my previous rides. And the guy's like, well, that's fine. Just get on. And it turns out there was one seat left in the back, and the reason why nobody wanted that seat is because it was right in front of an open floorboard that had the engine underneath, and all of the exhaust from the engine was going right into that seat. So I had a beautiful 3-hour ride, and I was just sucking on tailpipe the whole way. I arrived around 9 p.m. in Guatemala City, and I had to walk back to my host house. I show up, I hadn't eaten all day, not a drink of water. Soot on my face, but I'm smiling, and my host asked me, we got to get to the airport. Where have you been? What's going on? I'm worried sick. And I said, I just made my dream come true. I made it to Copan. I picked up my bags, we head to the airport, and I flew home. But I'll never forget all the forks in the road, the guardian angels that were saving me at every juncture. I think about Paulo Coelho's quote that that when you have a goal, the universe will conspire in your favor. And I just think that if you have hope and you have those dreams, those adventures never fail. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Our next presenter, speaker, is Uluwalo Coleman, who is currently a sophomore sociology major with a minor in vocal music. He's a native Hawaiian/Samoan who is also a local of Southern California. Anyway, tonight he will share with you what he hopes to be a relatable and real experience of his that you'll find enjoyable and educational.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello everybody. My name in Samoan is Sialu Walofainga Manwilua. And I've always hated when people come up and before they give a talk, they ask everyone to close their eyes and lead them through some cheesy, cliche reflection. So what I'd like you to do is please close your eyes. We're going to start off with one of those. For real slow, thank you. Picture yourself on an island. The air is warm. The breeze blows softly over your skin as you hear the waves crash upon the shore. In the distance, you hear children playing and the native people singing traditional songs as they do their daily chores. Lo tanu wa ufana wa leleo levasae uaema mailunga ole tofi aonga. Can you see it? Are you there right now? You may open your eyes. Welcome to my childhood. I was very fortunate to be asked to speak tonight for the LMU Speaks event because storytelling holds a very special place in my heart. I'm of Native Hawaiian and Samoan descent, and more than that, Both my parents hailed from two high chief families within the Samoan community. Because of that, I was raised in what we call Fa'a Samoa, or the Samoan way, which is heavily comprised of a strong oral tradition. Growing up, in my household, my parents didn't have a TV. Because of that, my siblings and I found our favorite pastime to be my parents and I's stories that they would share with us about their upbringings and adventures in the villages of Samoa. This unique upbringing and the constant reminder to always remember that I'm a representative of my family names and in extension, the Samoan community, has had a lot to do with all of the decisions that I've made in my life. With every decision, every choice that I make, not only do I carry with me my future and my family, but I carry with me a people. And every choice, every decision is in the effect of the progress of an entire community. Going into elementary school, middle school, and high school, I've kept this mindset to always be mindful of trying to represent my family and my people in everything that I've done. Because of that, I ended up being that kid. The one kid that signs up for everything. That one kid that all the parents go, why can't you be more like him? He's so involved. He's such a participant. Just to let you know how annoying I must have been. Just to give you an idea. 2nd grade, I was part of the Gifted and Talented Education Program. 4th grade, vice president. 5th grade, school president. In middle school, I was drum major for 2 years for the marching band. Played guitarron for the mariachi band. Electric guitar for the jazz band in high school. I was in BSA, NSB, NHS, NS, HSS, CSF, PI, basically every letter in the alphabet. And this is just the condensed version. That's not even including my sports and fine arts. So you can imagine how excited I was the first weekend coming into LMU and they had this huge event called Club Fest. I nearly lost my mind. I saw all the tables and I just went straight for it and I signed up for everything, or at least as much as I could at the time. But I learned quickly that college was not like high school, middle school, or elementary school. As one of my mentors has told me time and time again, good is the enemy of great. Sometimes the things that make us seem good or make us sound good blind us from the potential of being great. In the picture that was used to advertise this event, I had a quote that went along with it that I came up with in 5 seconds, by the way, I can say that now. The quote was, "A yes man is a blessed man, but a yes man gets no rest, man." Good I did there? I know, bars for days. But, as you might have noticed by now, all my life I've been a yes man. Wallo, can you do this? Yes. Can you join this? Yes. I know you're busy, but yes. It's fine, I can fit it in. As a first-year student, I joined almost every club, organization, program, and council on this campus. You name it, I was probably either directly or indirectly a part of it in one way or another. I'm humbled and fortunate enough to say that as a first-year student, I traveled to 13 different states to lead/present on different workshops for various LMU programs at different conferences and scholastic meetings across the nation. Like I said, a yes man is a blessed man. With every yes arose another opportunity, and with each opportunity came more praise. Wallo, how do you do it? That's amazing. How do you balance everything? I would never be able to. Well, here's how. A yes man gets no rest, man. I did not sleep. I did not focus on my homework and my studies. I didn't even eat. Sometimes I'd be so busy that I forget that you need to eat to stay alive to do the things that you're busy with. I wasn't making time for myself. And more importantly, I wasn't making time for the sole reason why I was here in the first place, my education. I was so focused on being everything to everyone around me that at the end of the day, I was nothing to myself. Instead of putting 100% into a selection of commitments, I was putting 20% or however much I could at the time into a vast, vast multitude of commitments. I ended up losing 20 to 25 pounds from not eating. And I slept so few hours that when summer came, I literally had to force myself to sleep more than 4 hours. It was then that I realized it was time to make a change. The path that I was on was not working. Although it seemed good, it was not great. And it was keeping me from reaching my greatness. My grades were suffering. My health was suffering. My social life was suffering. And so, I decided to cut back on my commitments. I decided to look through my schedule and realize what it was that I was truly passionate about and what it was of those things that was truly going to help me in my experience here at LMU and afterwards. And it wasn't easy. It was hard. In fact, it wasn't until the beginning of this semester that I actually said no for the first time. And it was physically hard for me to say the word. My boss, the great and powerful Henry Ward, asked me to facilitate, lead an intercultural facilitation for the athletics department. And my previous self would have just said yes. Not looking at my planner, not anything else, just yes. But I knew that it would not have fit into my schedule, and so I said, no, I'm sorry, I can't make that one. And you know what he said? That's all right. That's okay. And life went on after that. And as the semester has progressed, I found it easier and easier to say no. Because of that, I'm proud to say that my grades are where they should be. My health is the best that it's been in a long time. And my social life, it's lit. Let me just say self-love is not selfish. Prioritizing oneself and one's needs, even in my case, over the needs of one's people, is not selfish. When we approach a fork in the road, it's important to remember that we are the ones that have to live with the path that we choose. Coming to college, this is the last step before the real world. Everyone that gives you ideas of what college is like tells you, the most important thing are your grades, your SAT scores, your ACT scores, your extracurriculars. And although that is true, what they don't tell you is that college takes a certain type of mental toughness. It's more pressuring than high school, middle school, and elementary school. It takes a specific type of endurance and tenacity. It's one thing to get in. It's another to stay focused while you're here on why you're here, so that you can graduate and get your degree. I learned that the hard way. Of all my experiences, little side notes and stories that I've shared with you today, if I could leave you with one last thing, it would be that while balancing the pressures of family, friends, even community, those that may expect you to be a certain way or may depend on you, it's important to be who you believe yourself to be. Be who you were raised to be. Be who you're called to be. And always remember that the only way that you can be anything for anyone else is by first being the best you can be for yourself. That's what I learned from my fork in the road. And with that, I'd like to say, thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you for another wonderful presentation. Our fourth and final speaker tonight is Lynn Mitchell-Parrish. Lynn's background is in theater. She's been in dozens of plays, musicals, and speech competitions throughout the years. She's performed stand-up comedy, improv, and has spent her entire life as a character actor. Her current role is a 14-year run as wife, mom, and modest everyday superhero. Lynn works here at LMU in the IT department, which is, quote, well known for its boisterous sense of humor. That may be an alternative fact. Right?
Thanks for coming out. This does not seem to be on, or is it? Did you?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not.
All right, where's the on button?
It's
All right.
switch.
That's, how's this? Better? No? It's
Here.
tells me it's on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Lynn Mitchell Parrish. The hyphen in my name, the result of a fork in the road decision. I had spent so much, I invested so much in being Lynn Mitchell that I wasn't going to just throw it all away and start from scratch. So I just added Parrish on like the partner in a law firm. And it also keeps him on his toes a bit, so it's sort of win-win. The fork in the road. The defining moment where you have to make a big decision. You make that decision. It's different from the other types of metaphorical cutlery you happen upon in the road. Like the spoon in the road. Nobody really talks about the spoon in the road. Because that's not really your decision. That's someone else giving you something. You find yourself blissfully in abundance. You're just going to eat it all up with a spoon, I guess. I may be making this up. The knife in the road just comes out of nowhere. And typically is the result of someone else's fork in the road. Really. It's their fork. What? Something's happening. Hello.
That was the other mic.
Okay. We're going to switch mics here. Hello?
Yep.
So we started down the road. They asked me, don't you want to be hands-free? I said, no, I'm more of a hands-full kind of person, so you really want to give me a mic, or at least, because otherwise what am I going to do with my hands? So anyway, we're at the doorway, the knife in the road, yes, the unexpected, right before my mic cut off. The result of someone else's fork in the road decision, because their fork typically holds you in place while the knife just sort of slices. It's funny, when I was first asked to be a part of this really special evening, and I was told that the theme was the fork in the road, the first thing I thought about was a time when I was a kid riding my bike around the neighborhood, and have a seat, kiddo. And I happened upon an actual fork lying in the road. I said, oh, I have to tell that story. So, my first thought was, somebody's mom is going to be really mad. So I hopped off my bike to make sure that it wasn't a fork from my house. My mom would have been really mad. And I was just a kid, so I didn't really overthink it. I just walked up to it, did what kids would do. I stomped on it. It flipped end over end and stabbed me in the knee. I had these 4 evenly spaced puncture marks just scabbed into my knee for like the entire summer. It was a mess. So I learned early on that when you come to a fork in the road, whatever you do, you still don't have to overthink it. I mean, you don't have to, but whatever you do, don't stomp on it. Don't be careless about the opportunity, because it will very likely stab you in the knee. For some great stories tonight from amazing places, I'm going to add to these amazing places, take you to the exotic landscape of Oklahoma, where I come from. I think it's important to know a little bit about the person to kind of help better understand the dilemma of the fork in the road. So for me, to understand about my personality, I'm going to need to take you back to birth. So we come into the world, we're supposed to come in head first, right? That's how it's supposed to be done. You come into the world head first. If you're feet first, they call you breach, I guess, of contract or something. I don't know. It's spelled differently. But we don't really hold newborns to that high of a standard at the time. So. And then there's another kind of rule breaker. Sorry, I have like a frog in my throat, but it's okay. We're sharing the space. There's another kind of rule breaker, and that's called frank breach, and that's butt first. That was me. So I feel like maybe I was perhaps making a statement just right off the top. But in the early 70s, they believed that C-sections were for chumps. So the doctor actually reached in, up, and grabbed my feet and popped me into the world. So that whole experience sort of set the tone for my level of compliance with how things should be. I've always had my view kind of askew as a result. And it was hard for other people, too, because they didn't really understand where I was coming from. And they always tried to stick me in a box or put a label to me, and those labels would just peel right off. I mean, the biggest one, the only one that's probably true, was girl. I was like, okay, fine, sure, but I feel like there's more to it, or that should somehow be limiting, so go ahead. And they would say that I couldn't do certain things because I was girl, like climb a tree, or arm wrestle, or scrape the seal gasket off of a transmission pan. It's actually not that complicated. It's pretty simple, but and so I'd say, okay, fine, then I'm a boy. now can I get back to what I was doing? And that would actually totally freak them out. So my mom sat me down one day and said, Lynn, rather than, freak people out by trying to show them how ridiculous they're being, why don't you just be yourself? Just do the things you're gonna do, because you're gonna be great at it no matter what. And in fact, anything in this life, whether you decide that you can or you decide that you can't, you're gonna be right. So just keep making that choice that you can do whatever you want and you're gonna be fine. I said, Mom, thank you for that, but I'm not really the one who needs the hard sell here. You gotta get these bozos out of my business. That's a big thing. But it's about that I was just before 10. My parents came to a fork in the road with their marriage. And it was weird. I remember asking, what is a divorce? What are you talking about? Is it like quitting? Because remember when I wanted to quit baseball? And you said, no, Lynn, we really need to see this through because, we've already paid for the uniform, the fees. And I said, but, Mom, I really want to quit because we switched from coach pitch to kid pitch, and I took what felt like a 128,000 mile an hour fastball in my side. I just don't think I can do this anymore. And you said, we don't quit things in this house. Remember that? Because I kind of feel like we're all in this for the little more than a cost of a uniform and some league fees, and I really think we need to see this through. They tried to be by the book and say, Lynn, we don't want you to feel like any of this is your fault. Anyway, I said, oh no way, this is squarely on you guys. Absolutely. I'll tell you what else, I'm quitting baseball. That's happening tonight. And I'm going to walk away from anything else that doesn't feel right and doesn't make any sense to stick with if it hurts me that badly. And actually, you guys aren't going to have anything to say about it. So, okay, good talk. I'm just going to go upstairs and pack the rest of my life up to date here. It didn't actually go quite that smoothly. But once again, I'd been sort of grabbed by the feet and popped into a new scary, bright, scary place. But at least this time, I was able to stand on my own 2 feet. But there was an adjustment period, though, because I was already on the radar for being the child of teenagers. I didn't mention that. I know that's a whole other fork in the road thing. But I'm from Oklahoma, so there really wasn't a whole lot for other kids to do. In fact, I think that was a state motto at the time. It's Oklahoma. What else are you gonna do? Until they became #1 in teen pregnancy, and then they just started to rethink the branding of it. But now being a child of divorce, again, in a small Bible-belted town, I got used to whispers, and I got used to being the type of person that people would talk about rather than talk to. And so I did kind of go inward a bit, but I didn't disappear. I found comedy. And comedy and I became best friends, and I started to realize that I can throw something out there, and if we're both laughing, then we're not thinking about awkwardness of whatever my life has been up to date. And so that just kind of stuck. And I enjoyed it. It wasn't just a mask. I really enjoyed making people laugh and taking them to another place for a second, trying on a different pair of shoes and walking around like a mile or so, just even for a little while. So that became the thing. Theater, plays, that led to speech competitions, film auditions, okay, baby. Film auditions, and then improv, stand-up comedy, and all of those were the path for so long. Until I came to a fork in the road. And I found myself looking down this other path of marriage, kids, these 2 delightfully challenging people. And I thought, this sounds so normal. It's so absurd, I can't pass it up, right? So I plunged ahead, and we walked down that road, and it's been okay, right? It's been interesting. I'm going to stick it out. I'm hyphenated, but you saw it. It's all good. But the goal now is to just try to find a little bit of both, right? The comedian Stephen Wright said, you can't have it all, where would you put it? That's not the best Stephen Wright impression, but I think it is one of the older ones out there, so I'm still in the lead, I think. But you just got to find these pockets where you can do a little something. Stand-up comedy at a dear friend's birthday party, or I don't know, call the ITS help desk. I bet that voice sounds familiar. Or stand in front of a room full of people in the library and get to share a lovely story like this. So what's next? I'm not sure. I think, I don't know, maybe I'll surprise everybody. We'll see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all so much for sharing your amazing stories. Stories help us make sense of the world, and we've heard some tonight that certainly do that. So I just want to have another big round of applause for all four of our storytellers. I also want to thank tonight, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Carol Raby, and I'm the Library Events Manager, and this program was an idea that I came to Chris Francolini with after Toby Lynn Birch, our then Associate Dean, attended a workshop at an ALA, American Library Association convention about storytelling in libraries. And we were smitten with the concept at the workshop, and then we came back and shared it with Chris, who said, go for it, make it happen. So I really, really want to thank you for that green light, and I think it was worth it. And I didn't do this by myself. I had a lot of help. My family has listened to stories about this storytelling evening endlessly. And I know they're all going to be happy that it's come and gone. I appreciate them very, very much and love them dearly. I also had a fantastic committee, and although one member has left the library, she was still instrumental in getting us started, Denise. So I miss her tonight, but I appreciate the groundwork that she laid. And I want to thank Jamie Hazlett, John Jackson, Stephanie Greitz, and Henry Ward and Jeffrey Gatton for being solidly there every time I said, I think we should meet. And being here to see the product that we all did produce together. I want to thank everybody in the audience for coming. I know a lot of you, and I really appreciate your support. And those of you who I don't know, I hope to get to know, because at the back of this room we have 4 cocktail tables set up, and our speakers from tonight are going to go hang out in those cocktail tables, which have chocolate on them, if the food over there and the beverages aren't enough to keep you talking. My hope is that we'll continue to exchange information and have fun and valuable face-to-face communication in a world where that is getting rare. So I really just want to say one final thank you to everyone in the room. And please enjoy the refreshments. Please complete the feedback forms at some point if you can, because this is a pilot program, and we have a decision to make, a fork in the road if you must, to continue doing these or to have this just be a one-off event. And what you write on your feedback forms will impact our decision greatly. The last thing I want to say is on March 1st, we are having a fantastic event called Chinese Women's Voices. It will be 3 students who will bring to life voices from Chinese women who are strong and fascinating and have compelling stories to entertain and inspire you. So thank you very much. Please enjoy the rest of we have about half hour, so please enjoy.